Welcome back to the Red Hood storyline. When we last left off, Red Hood went too far, attempting to kill Penguin, and he was kicked out of Gotham by Batman. He then went to the Midwest to find a gang and become the roaming outlaw that he has always meant to be. Recently, with the death of Roy Harper, Red Hood took a moment to breathe as he was looking for the boss of this gang, the one that they call Solitary. But now it's time for Red Hood to see the true mastermind behind this gang. If you're wondering where you are, this is the Comicstorian channel, where we bring you your favorite lore within video games, comic books, and movies, and we break them down into audio dramas, allowing you to catch up on your favorite stuff. Now let's kick off Red Hood issue 30 and 31. Since the death of Roy Harper, Red Hood has been wandering and searching for answers. Answers about who killed Roy, but also answers on the one called Solitary. Shortly before Roy's death, he and Red Hood were investigating a drug trafficking ring that first led them to Beijing. That is what brought Red Hood to Mexico, or more specifically, awhile. No one speaks of the abandoned prison. Even the locals are petrified just hearing the name. So the question is, what's everyone afraid of? Back in Appleton, the Pie Lady turned out to be someone called Monday, just one in an army of clones serving the underlife boss known as Solitary. She claimed that he controlled a huge part of the country that isn't Gotham or Metropolis, which only makes you wonder why Red Hood hasn't ever heard of him. As Red Hood gets to his truck, he looks up, stating that he can see why this place has the locals spooked. This prison is more like a fortress, the one you're not supposed to go into. Red Hood opens up the metal doors and begins to look around, but one of the first things that he sees is blood splatter. By the looks of it, it was caused by a sword, a long one, and who would attack a prison with a sword? But after only getting a few feet within, Red Hood notices a small drone following him, and he thinks at least he's not alone. The next thing Red Hood sees is a giant door torn apart by what seems like an axe. Could a meta have done this? The only one that he can think of that could have done this is Artemis. He hasn't seen Artemis and Bizarro ever since Bizarro sucked the entire floating base that Red Hood, Artemis, and Bizarro had into a portal above Gotham. Just as Red Hood starts to head in, he's struck from behind by a man in a Bat family costume. The wingman costume, and the man tells him that he'll be honest. That went a lot easier than he thought. Red Hood reaches for his crowbar, stating that his mind was elsewhere. Just like that head is about to be. The man kicks Red Hood in the face, telling him, "That's a good one." And a short while later, Red Hood wakes back up, stating, "Not gonna happen, wingman. No way some third-tier wannabe bat is gonna drag me back to Gotham." Wingman tells Red Hood that he's a little confused. He's here to beg him to come back under his own volition. He took Red Hood's old suit, the Wingman's suit, to show him that he was wanting him to return. There are interested parties who believe that he is needed. Not everyone agrees with Batman's methods in Gotham. They've been waiting a long time for a prince of crime to lead them out of the darkness. Red Hood then says, "Well, that was unexpected. But why the getup? Why an old identity of mine?" Before Wingman could answer, a brick is thrown, knocking Wingman out. With no one in sight, the bricks begin to move on their own from the wall, and they all aim straight for Red Hood. Red Hood braces himself, but the bricks pass through him and only damage the chair that he's in. Red Hood gets up to look out of the hole in the wall, and he sees a floating arrow made of bricks pointing in a direction. Red Hood tells himself, "Very subtle. Not like I wasn't going to explore this place anyway." And as Red Hood follows the path, he finds a test tube with another clone inside. Batwoman called them Mondays when he worked with her because the clones were created by the stolen DNA of Solomon Grundy. Red Hood realizes that this is depressing, but the rest of these test tubes, they're terrifying. Just then he hears something and he points his sword at whatever made the noise, and he sees a dog. Red Hood says that she's a cute one, and he holds his hand out for the dog to sniff. She sniffs and wags her tail, and Red Hood tells her, "Good. Now that we're friends, lead on. Just don't expect a name. I'm not very good with names, hence Red Hood." As the dog guides Red Hood through, she brings him to a room filled with the Underlife's tainted drugs, all packed neatly and ready for shipment. Red Hood picks up one of the packages, stating, "This is it. They did it. But why can't I shake the feeling that something bad is about to happen?" The dog starts to bark at the shadows, and Red Hood follows, and that's when he finds some stolen Star Labs tech. When he looks up, Red Hood sees one more test tube, except it's not another clone. It's the metahuman bunker. Red Hood reaches for the emergency release, and just before he can press the button, a man with 3 shifting heads appears. "Son," Red Hood tells him, "Right. I'm gonna go out on a limb and state that the 3 of you are Solitary." Solitary holds his arms out, stating, "I knew we would meet again, but I always thought that I would come to find my son, the king of his own domain. disappointed to say the least. Red Hood tells him, that's cute coming from someone who kidnapped a 19-year-old metahuman for God only knows why. Or maybe you're scared? Red Hood throws his crowbar at Solitary, and Solitary dodges it and shouts, ha! Missed by a country mile! Red Hood then says he also missed what the crowbar was being thrown at, because it looks a lot less like an experiment and more like a cage. You're scared to death of Bunker, and I'm about to find out why. The crowbar pierces through the glass of the test tube, releasing the water from within, and Solitary yells, you have no idea what power you just unleashed. You forced my hand, son. Bunker was supposed to be used to get a better control over the clones, and all of that will be sacrificed to just maintain Bunker. As Solitary runs to the controls, Red Hood tackles into Solitary and gets ready to punch, but the dog starts to bark elsewhere. Red Hood looks up and sees Solitary standing across the room, and he says that he controls perception. He could be standing on his throat and no one would be able to tell the difference. He's called Solitary because only his vision matters. His word is law. Red Hood gets up running away, telling him, unfortunately for you, I'm an outlaw, so your word doesn't mean crap. Solitary begins to lift the bricks up, asking where is he going, and Red Hood says, just out of the line of fire. As the bricks shoot through the air, they hit the test tube containing Bunker. And Bunker steps out shouting, how long have I been in there? The last thing I remember was a psionic disturbance. Solitary begins to escape, stating, it would have been you. You were a threat to everything that has been built. But before Bunker could follow, Solitary begins to get away, and Red Hood stops him, telling him, hey, I need a favor. A few moments later, Red Hood tracks down Solitary alone with the dog. And just as he turns the corner, Wingman jumps out. Red Hood quickly ducks, grabbing onto Wingman, throwing him into a wall, stating, I'm going back to Gotham on my terms! Wingman punches back, telling him, that's not good enough. We need you now! Red Hood takes the crowbar, cracking into Wingman's arm. The Wingman spins back, slamming Red Hood into the wall, telling him, I will drag you back if I have to! The dog bites into Wingman's leg, causing him to let go, and the ground suddenly begins to shake. Wingman asks, what's going on? And Red Hood tells him, that is the work of my friend leveling this hellhole. You could be a part of the solution or a part of the problem, but you can't be both. Red Hood begins to run off, and Wingman gets up, stating, that did not go as well as I'd like. Why couldn't you just be honest with me? Red Hood follows the dog as he searches for Solitary until he finds him sitting in a cell alone. Red Hood asks, are you okay? And Solitary says, didn't want it to end this way, Jason. Before Red Hood could ask, everything changes around him, and he places the two of them outside of the prison. Red Hood tells him, right, perceptions. And Solitary tells him, yes, this is what I looked like years ago, normal. I was a prisoner locked up for a crime I didn't commit. I wasn't blameless, but in this case, I was unjustly accused. I spent my life writing and trying to reach out to my family. And then the government made me an offer. Red Hood looks at the images of three men strapped onto tables, and he says, yeah, the government would experiment on you in exchange for your freedom, right? But just as they were starting, there was a massacre ordered by a man named Lex Luthor. He wanted his stolen technology back. He sent in a woman to make a statement, and her name was Artemis. She had depths of compassion few will ever know. The process merged me and the two other inmates into one being. Solitary. I was given this power for a reason, and now together are father and son, and we can rebuild the Empire, Jason. If that's so, show me the tattoo. It was something you were proud of. Solitary says he must be mistaken, but Red Hood rips off the sleeve to Solitary's shirt, and Solitary backs away, stating he doesn't understand. The ground shakes and Solitary falls, and just as Red Hood begins to reach for him, the dog barks in the other direction. Red Hood whips back, throwing the crowbar into Solitary's chest, and he begins to escape. Solitary calls out to him, but Red Hood tells him, you hurt a lot of people. No one's gonna care if you die on the dirt floor of an abandoned Mexican prison. Solitary coughs. You can't talk to your father that way. A week later, in a cemetery outside of Seattle, Red Hood visits the grave of Roy, telling him that he never said this before, but he always hated that hat. That trucker hat that he wore? He's not sure who did this, and he doesn't even care. All he knows is that this has to stop. Never again, buddy. Never again. Bunker asks him, where to next? And Red Hood tells him, Gotham City. But I'm gonna need you to go on ahead and set the tables. Bunker then asks, what about you? And Red Hood responds, I have a few things I need to take care of first. And that brings us up to the Crowned Prince of Gotham, Red Hood, which is the next arc coming out. We will be covering that very soon, and I hope you enjoyed this portion of it. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you want to get this, or you can join us on our Patreon, where you get early access to all of the videos we are creating right here at Comicstorian. All of those links are down below, and you can also give this video a like to let me know, Benny, bring me more Red Hood. I'll see you next time right here at Comicstorian Army.